People know me for helping launch the Cosmos ecosystem. I've been sort of the one-trick pony about why app chains are good for a decade. My argument in this slide deck is that in 2025 is the year that the industry figured out how to do app chains in a way that they are viable. And so I'm just going to run through the argument. OK, so last year was the dark ages for app chains. Solana dominated DEX volume. Basically, anytime, Solana was the preeminent argument that, you can't build an app chain. You won't have liquidity. You won't have users. Basically, every Cosmos chain was slowly spent all of 2024 dying. And while I wouldn't say that we are in an full app chain bull market yet, we are starting to see things changed. What changed was Hyperliquid. So the Hyperliquid playbook was native order book with sub-second finality, revenue generation from day one, the prioritization of high-frequency trading, vertical integration of the stack, and then started minimal and added a framework for building, added a framework later. I'll expand on this a little bit. So there are 4 pillars of the 2025 era app chains. So native stablecoins. The Hyperliquid USDH politics were a very public discussion of what does it mean to have Hyperliquid, have a native stablecoin. More and more chains are doing a native stablecoin where yield goes to the ecosystem rather than to Circle or Tether. Then you are seeing more and more conversations about transaction lanes. So Hyperliquid, again, great example of transaction lanes. They prioritize limit orders. Vaults, so I've spent the last 5 years building various vault products, continue to build various vault products. I think vaults have product market fit, as you've seen with Plasma recently, with liquidity bootstrapping. One of the biggest arguments against launching an app chain was you won't have any liquidity. No market makers will support your app chain. There won't be any DeFi traders, et cetera. What we've seen over and over again now is there is a solution to how do you bootstrap liquidity for your app chain, which is you have a vault. The vault takes deposits. The vault earns points in whatever your system is going to be. And that provides the initial liquidity for users on your system, whether it's to a lending market, whether it's providing counterparties for a perp DEX, or other use cases that are yet to be imagined. And then the other thing that, again, has been a huge success for app chains is their ability to support co-location. So everybody wants to be in AWS Tokyo or every high-frequency trading use case wants to be in AWS Tokyo. Big general-purpose blockchains, whether it's Solana or Ethereum, tend not to be in Tokyo for a variety of reasons. This creates an opportunity for app chains. So you have these 2 players, Agora and M0. They've provided composable building blocks for building a native stablecoin for your system. So you see wallets launching stablecoins. You see chains launching stablecoins. And the biggest thing that it does is it actually gives a chain a way of immediately having revenue from the DeFi activity that you have on the chain. So historically, when a new app chain launched, we saw this over and over again in Cosmos. Having USDC, USDT was essential to the success of your chain, because where else are you going to get liquidity and users? You had to spend an enormous amount in token incentives to bring on stablecoin liquidity, and then this generated 0 revenue for your chain. And then just basically started the downward debt spiral of your token. Now you have this way of incorporating, now you can have negative yield sharing white label stablecoins. Yield comes back to the chain ecosystem, generates revenue. You have revenue for token buybacks. It basically solves this cold start problem. You are seeing the advantage of transaction lanes and reserved block space in all kinds of app chains. And this seems to be a thing. So, you have, again, you could take Hyperliquid as an example, 200,000 TPS, for their order book transactions, but like the EVM transactions are actually rate limited to a much smaller number of transactions, much less than something like Base or Ethereum, and it seems to work. Payments are coming up as a use case that require transaction lanes, something that we have been predicting as a use case for app chains for a long time. This gives you reliable solutions for various things. Okay, so we are now seeing like a Cambrian explosion of frameworks. The OG frameworks are the Cosmos SDK and Substrate. We have now a new generation of frameworks. Reth from Paradigm has become like essentially an app chain framework. Initia, Commonware, the Sovereign SDK, Avalanche's app chain SDK, all provide like a whole new set of frameworks. Probably the biggest downside of people who are built for everyone who's building the frameworks is that the success stories so far have actually been fairly minimalist in how much they have used a framework. So Hyperliquid built on Cosmos's ABCI framework, which is the like most minimal thing. ABCI was invented in 2015, and then eventually added Reth, and was has been the best of both worlds. The thing that is most like a centralized exchange on most like an EVM compatible L1 in both worlds. Lighter has done something similar, also a perpdex, custom ZK circuits, and they didn't use any of the ZK compatible frameworks. Instead, they built their own system, but they are thinking about adding a ZK framework for extensibility and programmability, sort of similar to the Hyperliquid path. So it's still a little bit unclear, like whether or not frameworks supporting builders are going to be the future, or like winning teams are going to continue to build an extremely custom core application. I think the biggest thing that we got wrong in, let's say, the first decade of app chains is we didn't prioritize speed above all else. So now you are seeing most app chains launching with sub-100 millisecond blockchains. So like 2024 was, was the Cosmos, the sort of Cosmos standard set of options was the default that most chains chose, 1 to 6 second block times. And it was unclear exactly. And 2024 and 2025 has shown that there's a huge amount of demand for sub-second blocks and cutting edge to go below 100 milliseconds. The other thing that app chains really open up is programmable sequencers. Block producing doesn't have to be. Now you're seeing both this on monolithic blockchains like Solana with BAM and Flashbox, but very easy to natively integrate into your app chain. So again, the mistake of Cosmos, the mistake of like what went wrong with the first generation of app chains was we focused on decentralization. Like the argument for app chains at the time was you were seeing all this centralized off-chain infrastructure on Ethereum. We were like, we could do it better with like truly decentralized applications, and no one cared. Now you are seeing the 2025 era of blockchains. They are all high-frequency trading-oriented applications. The reason you start with HFT, everything else follows after that. Your entire go-to-market is focused around. So one thing that is cool about this is that it enables a lot of innovation on market microstructure. So you have like all of these things, matching algorithms, fee structures, application-specific MEV protection, all of this stuff in market microstructure is enabled by an enormous amount of innovation in app chains. The core of this is, like, the core that makes this really valuable is that on a general purpose system, you have to adapt your market, like what application market microstructure there is to what is possible within the general purpose system. So you've seen things like the emergence of prop AMMs on Solana, which are a market microstructure innovation, but they are constrained by, all the builders are constrained by, this is what's possible on Solana today. If you're building an app chain, everyone can have whatever they imagine. So you see things like latency bumps, so you can be like, your transactions are free if you are willing to wait up to like a few hundred milliseconds to a second for inclusion. If you want faster inclusion than not 500 milliseconds, there's a varying fee schedule. This allows you to have an environment where like retail players don't pay any fees and HFT firms pay all the fees. All of these things are interesting, and we'll see whether or not there's like any product market fit that really emerges from it. But like far more rapid market microstructure innovation is possible within the app chain context. The other big thing that app chains are driving demand for is low latency Oracle integration. So there's like all of these different use cases for very fast oracles. Hyperliquid famously provides Oracle updates, again, sub-second. You can build DeFi things out of these very fast oracles that you can't build in an environment in which you have to wait hundreds of milliseconds, a second, a minute for an Oracle update. So we have basically seen the emergence of kind of a goal of like everything that we need for app chains to finally succeed is finally like kind of here. Infrastructure has matured. You don't need big teams. It seems like the optimal app chain team size is now like 5 engineers. This is a huge change from when app chains needed to raise, tens of millions of dollars, build, 20, 30 person engineering teams, and because of their slow iteration speed, would always miss product market fit and wouldn't really adapt to the market. Now teams that are basically trading first, so like X market maker teams can build an app chain pretty much by themselves. Stablecoins, Hyperliquid has shown people it's possible. High frequency trading is the primary use case. The other big thing is the emergence of vaults as a standard industry primitive. More now that there's like sort of widespread adoption of vaults, this like normal thing where you would get blocked when you're launching an app chain, which you're like, no market makers support my app chain, nobody wants to integrate my new protocol. You have an instant solution to all of this, which is the team or someone closely associated with the team builds a vault. That vault is adapted to the specifics of your system, and the vault can be matured in parallel with your sort of application design, and basically solves your cold start liquidity problem. So I think we are here now at the golden age of app chains once again, and I think that we are going to start seeing a lot more exciting things in the app chain space, and app chains will be a major theme of this bull market. Cool. Thank you very much.